Hey, if you're more of a hoodie person, we have just a few of these left in stock. Plus, we're giving away a free mystery skein of yarn from my personal stash with every hoodie order. So get your order in quick before they're all gone. I'll have a link in the description below. When it comes to quick win projects, you really can't beat a crochet flower, especially this time of year. Let's see how quickly we can crochet each one of these 3 flowers. I bet we can do it in 10 minutes or less. Probably. If you want to follow along, we have a free pattern available for all 3 of these flowers, and they can be found on our website. Those links are down in the description. For this one, you really only need a few yards of yarn. Any worsted weight yarn will do. I am really loving Peyton's Classic Wool Worsted these days. This color palette is to die for. Very springy. I absolutely love it. So this one starts off with 4 chains and join with a slip stitch to your first chain, and you have a little ring. Chain 1, we're not counting that chain 1 as a stitch, single crochet. That is part of our petal combination. So we have a single crochet, and then we have 4 treble crochets in a row. Our petal combo is 1 single crochet, 4 treble crochets, and a single crochet. And we have a total of 5 petals in this flower. So this gets really crowded. All you need to do is just kind of scrunch them over to the side, and we'll go right into the next petal. But we have our single crochet here, so we don't need to add that again. If you're not like super great with making treble crochets, it really doesn't matter because it gets so crowded and we have to scrunch this up so much that you can't even tell if the stitches aren't perfect. The neat thing about all 3 of these flower patterns is that you can change the gauge to make your flower bigger or smaller. Use a bulky or super bulky yarn and a bigger hook, for example, to make them bigger. Or use a lightweight or fine weight yarn and a smaller hook to make them smaller. No adjustments are needed to the pattern at all. When you get to the last petal, you will have to make a single crochet here just so we can finish the shaping off there, because the single crochet pulls everything down and that's what gives it kind of like the petaled shape. And moving on to the next one. This next flower is a classic. It's just a teeny bit more involved than the last flower, but totally worth it. Use 2 colors for a look like this, or simplify it to only a single color, whatever you prefer. This one starts off with a magic loop and 6 single crochet. And then join with a slip stitch to your first single crochet to finish that off. I can completely cover up all of this nonsense with my petal. So just get your hook into place. I kind of feel like we should use the teal again, or the blue or aqua, whatever you want to call this color. Fasten on, and I'm going to make 2 chains. Now the star of this flower is the puff stitch. Puff stitches are a favorite for many because of how fluffy and textured they are. And the neat thing is that you can change the thickness or the fluff of the puff stitch by playing with the number of times you yarn over in this section of the pattern. We want these petals to be extra fluffy, so we do this 6 times for each puff stitch. Yarn over and pull through all those loops. Chain 1 to finish off the stitch, chain 2 more times, and then slip stitch to your next single crochet. One little trick to make your petals, your little puff stitches, a little puffier is to kind of finger block them and just push them out. Looks quite a bit better if you do that. For this last puff stitch, you will join with a slip stitch to your first stitch there and just kind of tuck it up under that first puff stitch. The next flower is really interesting, and if you're looking for a challenge or something completely different, this is it. Bullion stitches are the star of this flower, and although they can be a little involved, it's totally worth the extra effort. This one starts off with a magic ring as well. And 6 single crochets. This time we're not going to fasten off. This one's worked all in a single color, and we're not going to join with a slip stitch. You'll need to pull up on this loop just a little bit, kind of like, I don't know, what is that, like maybe a ½ an inch or so, and then wrap the yarn around your hook 8 times. Find your first single crochet, yarn over, pull through, and then we need to work this loop through all of these wraps. You know, it's fiddly. So I like to do this one loop at a time for this flower. It's not a super cylindrical shape when you do it like this, a little bit wider up at the top, which is perfect for this flower. So walking it back one loop at a time will accomplish that. I'm using my 2 fingers to make this doable, to keep this loop on my hook and not let it fall off. It looks super sloppy like this, but we can fix it by just pulling up on this loop and then kind of pull it back down and then block it a little bit with your fingers, and it looks a little neater. And then you'll make a really loose chain. You're not trying to scrunch this down, but we do need to finish that stitch off. And that's really all there is to this flower. We just need 2 bullion stitches in every stitch. So we're gonna have a total of 12. There are a few different ways to make bullion stitches, and this definitely isn't the easiest option. You can use a latch hook, or you can make wraps around another hook alongside your working hook, if that makes sense, to make it easier to pull through all of them at once. You can use whichever method you want for this flower. They'll all work just the same. The first one, you can kind of just write that one off because it's going to take you a minute to get used to these stitches. Make like 3 flowers before you make one for real, because that's going to give you enough practice with these stitches that the 4th one is going to be perfect. And when you have 12 bullion stitches, locate your first one and then just slip stitch there. And like all the others, I like to use an invisible seam. When you're weaving this one in, did you see how that kind of like shrunk? I really did not want to do that. So you do have to watch how tightly you're pulling this tail, because it's going to, you know, scrunch that really tall stitch. So if it kind of looks a little bit wonky or lopsided in some area, pull on it and see if you can't get it to straighten itself out. If you find yourself in a pinch and you don't have a lot of time to enjoy your craft, flowers are the perfect way to go. I mean, the cool part about all of these flowers is that they each work up in less than 15 minutes and use less than 15 yards of yarn. The free pattern for all 3 of these can be found on the website, and I will have a link to all 3 of these, as well as like the entire playlist, if you will, of all of the flower patterns that we have available. I certainly went through a flower designing phase, and I have several of them that are really good. These are by far the quickest to make and require the least amount of yarn, but they are also included in our new spring flower pattern bundle. So if you do want to support the channel, then grab this bundle. It has all 3 of these flowers, plus they're just really fun spring projects to make. So if you want to support the channel and pick up that new flower pattern bundle, I will link that in the description as well. Happy hooking, and I'll see you in the next one.